The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Vegas 8. I'm Paul Shaughnessy, joined in studio by Cody Saftic. We got Pat Mayo on the sticks behind the scenes, coming off the heels of UFC Vegas 7. Bit of a disaster. I mean, I never had to make that. Didn't have to make that decision about that OSP fight because COVID killed that one.
COVID killed a bunch of them, and then you got different fights got put together, and Dwight Grant got added, who was after the show. Then he got a new matchup.
We did the show on a Wednesday night like usual.
Yeah.
Dropped on a Thursday morning, and all of a sudden, I just looked at the card on Saturday. I'm like, wow, there's like 2 new fights here, and one of them is off. Bit of a dumpster fire.
No doubt. So I did the same thing. I steered clear of the card, did not watch it.
I lost a bunch of money on Hubbard, but I didn't get invested in too much more.
But looking at the card after the fact, next day, just checking out the results. One thing did, you know what? Fights fell off, and it was this and it's that. And hey, steer clear. The passing on the card was the way to go. But one thing was very clear and obvious on that. Agapova shit the bed.
Oh.
This is something that we never pick at 12-1 anyway. So it was a pass. Just
we
like
told
Chimaev.
people not to bet her.
Well, of course. But we're talking about was you going to get it by submission or TKO. But Patrick Mayo, right on that. And we kind of just brushed him off like Pat.
We did.
And for that
She's
reason.
that bad? I think those are exact words out of my mouth.
Because I brushed off him on a very valid point. Why would you ever bet a women's fight at this point, let alone as a massive underdog? Just simply take Dobson, which was the move, which would have saved you. If you had a bad night, that one play alone would have quite literally saved you. So I thought to myself, you know what, self-imposed.
No, Mayo wouldn't let Cody into the building without bringing his shoe.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing a
Fake
flip-flop. I wasn't going to funnel it. Anyway, so I thought I'm going to do a shoe. It's self-imposed. I should do a shoe. But then I thought, you know what? Fuck me. It is the biggest upset technically in UFC history. So what's a dirty sneak? We can have a dirty barn boot. So we're back to the booty.
That thing is dirty.
Dirty as hell.
Inspect that. Thank you. Look at it.
That's a barn boot, ladies and gentlemen. Made in New
There's
Zealand.
Like little danglies and
New
stuff
Zealand
coming
leather.
off this thing.
Thankfully, because it's stepped on a lot of horse shit in its day, currently, as of yesterday, actually.
Oh boy.
Mind you, because it's airtight, the shit didn't seep to the bottom, and that's why the shoey should be relatively easy to get down. So, man, never do you want to self-impose a shoey. However, we were a little dismissive of Pat on a very excellent point. It was a bad card, passed all around, but what's fair is fair. So I think I'll get myself a shoey here.
I'd like for us to have an episode now. We'll roll into an episode where there doesn't have to be any punishments. That would be fun.
Oh, that's a dirty fucking shoey.
Get after it, kid.
I'm not like you though. I can't crush in one. It might. I'm gonna do my best though, because it was a bad pick.
Come on, tilt it. Oh, he's struggling. It is all foam. You got it.
It's all foam. Hogarth is probably a bad choice.
You got mustache foam. I think that's pretty good. I did not request this, by the way.
Pat demanded it. Stood in front of the door going, no.
Okay. Fucking Taito Ivasa.
I mean, he didn't mess you up this time. It was Agapova. But maybe that means the Hogarden's working.
This is very impressive. While I have you and you're watching this, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network, where you can now find the Dog or Pass podcast. The Dog or Pass podcast is actually going to have its own feed, audio-wise, starting soon, breaking away from the Pat Mayo Experience podcast. So be on the lookout for that. I'm just mentioning this now, so in 3 weeks' time, when it completely transfers over, you're like, oh shit, I remember it has its own feed. But all the videos are going to be up there. If we get to 10K subscribers by Monday, I'm doing cash giveaways. So fucking go subscribe to the show, share the show, do all that. Support your guys, Paul and Cody, and Pat Mayo.
If you're watching the episode right now, you're in the right place. So hit the subscribe button. That's pretty simple. If you followed our link on Twitter or wherever else that we share the link, Cody is struggling over here.
Okay.
That's because you have found the right place. Hit the subscribe. It's not going to show up on the DraftKings YouTube page like it has in the past. gonna show up on the Mayo Media Network. It's new to me. But yeah, it's gonna end up there. Hit the subscribe. There's gonna be basically just all of our content and everybody in the community or the Pat Mayo experience community. All of our content is going into the same place. Why don't we talk about some fights that are happening this week?
My God, yeah.
Are you ready? Are you good?
And will not be a Shoey bet on this week's card. However,
I'm not confident enough on anybody to like really.
You know what? Last week's
really
card,
put my
before
my
we jump
hammer
right in, last week's card was a lot of, I don't know, man. These are 50-50 fights. They're not priced accordingly. This week's card got priced accordingly and then got steamed. So now you're thinking, where can I find a little underdog that's going to be too juicy? And the favorites that you do like, they're all big favorites. So we're going to have to go back to the parlay machine, but I hope that wasn't apple pie I just smelled.
Yeah, there's
I hope it wasn't shit in the apple
Are there
pie.
any
I'm hoping it's
pies-
shit on the boot and not in the pie.
Luckily,
Let's get into it.
pies are fresh for every single card. It's hard to shit on an apple pie from last week's picks.
No, because every card you come in with a bag of flour, a little brown sugar, a little cinnamon. Of course, you got your apple.
Let's try to mix it up.
Yeah, baby. And then as the card progresses, you're slipping it in the oven and you're waiting and you're rubbing your hands, and all of a sudden, Ricardo Lamas shits in your apple pie, or Neil Magny. We'll talk to that one. There's a lot of potential apple pie shitters. But yeah, let's jump into it, man.
Main event, we have Anthony Lionheart-Smith taking on Alexander Rakic. Rakic, a minus 275 favorite. Anthony Smith can be had for plus 235. 3-round main event here. That is very, very important. Rakic, we have seen slow down a little bit as we get deeper into fights. Anthony Lionheart-Smith is the guy that he just is able to hang around. If this was a 5-round fight and these odds were kind of like this, I'd be tempted to play him. But I think we have never been an Anthony Smith program here. We've always been kind of off of him. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, I think Rakic is a better striker, longer, more technical. I don't really have much faith in Anthony Smith's grappling ability to take this fight to the mat and control it there. I think Rakic wins. Anthony Lionheart-Smith has been so tough over the years. I think Rakic wins by decision. But Smith, round 3, before he was getting these 5-round main event spots, round 3 is when he was winning all the fights. His opponents, he had the Homer Simpson strategy, just get absolutely pounded, and then he would come back in round 3 and finish the show. That is totally live to happen here. I would prefer, if this was a 5-round fight, I'd be betting Anthony Smith, even though I never bet Anthony Smith. But at these odds, 5 rounds, I would think like round 4, round 5, he'd be, he'll look tired, but he's still got enough in the tank.
He gets you to that you're tired and he's tired, and then he prevails. But if he gets tired and you're not tired, then he folds up. That's what happened against Glover. But I hear exactly what you're saying. The issue is that he needs to get that 3rd round finish. Simply winning the 3rd round wouldn't be enough for him, because he routinely drops the first 2 and then picks up the 3rd round. It was different against Glover. He won the first 2 and then cardio fell off. But that's just because of that massive speed advantage and a bit of a height and reach advantage that he has over Glover Teixeira that he obviously doesn't have over Alexander Rakic. But you're 100% right. The Andrew Sanchez fight, he's down the first 2 rounds. TKOs him in the 3rd. The Hector Lombard fight, he's down 2 rounds. TKOs him in the 3rd. The Volkan Oezdemir fight, it's not looking good for him. He gets him in the 3rd. The Alexander Gustafsson fight, I thought he was actually winning that fight, to be honest. Looking at the numbers, he was soundly outstruck, but I thought he was hanging around doing his due, and he submits him later in the fight. This is a guy that looks like he gets better later in fights, but that's just not it. He's tired after the first round. He's tired 2 rounds into the fight. It's just that he pushes a good pace. He can fight at range. He can fight in the pocket. He has good knees. He's got good elbows. He can take you down. He can try to take you down. He can grind you a little bit. His ground game's pretty sound, but all that workload just tires you. And then as he gets into deep water, he takes advantage. Maybe Rakic, he could take advantage. 3 rounds, I agree with you. Changes everything. Because Rakic, his cardio, it looks okay. He doesn't exert himself totally, but in that Volkan Oezdemir fight his last time out, he's definitely tired by the 3rd round. And you just see the wheels start to fall off a little bit. If that happens in a 5-round fight, and now all of a sudden you have Anthony Smith on your back, it's live. It's live, and you wouldn't want Rakic at 275. No. But because it's a 3-round fight, you got to think. Anthony Smith, as much as he does have the grappling advantage, he's not a very good wrestler. He struggles to get the fight to the ground. So I don't see him taking down Rakic. He's going to have to strike with him. If he does strike with him, especially for the first 2 rounds, I see Rakic having the advantage. Another thing for Anthony Smith that you look at him is he fights a lot of small-ass opponents, right? He fights a lot of guys that are former middleweights, or he fights a lot of guys that are just way shorter than him. looking at his record, outside of John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, the biggest wins of his career, mostly shorter opponents, right? When you look at Alexander Rakic, he's 6'4" with a 78-inch reach, right? It's a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's just as
78 to
tall.
76, yep.
Yeah, 78 to 76. They're both 6'4". I think of that nullifies a lot of what Smith does on the outside. Again, you go back to the Glover fight. He's just so much longer, and he is faster. He stays on the outside. He picks him apart. That's not going to be on the table here. Rakic takes him. Now, here's a problem with Rakic, though. I was high up on this kid, comes into the UFC. He is reckless, and he is young, and he looks promising, and looks like this guy could go on a serious run in the UFC. As far as his career goes in the UFC, Francimar Barroso, now released. Justin Ledet, now released. Devin Clark, that's a good little win, but Clark, we always talk about, middleweight and this and that. And then Jimmy Manuwa, who is also released, I believe, from the
Super
promotion.
chinny.
Super chinny, knocked him out with a head kick early, 40 seconds into the fight or something. During that span, he makes literally no improvements. He's very raw. He's very green. In fact, the Devin Clark fight, he gets dropped in that fight, but then he ends up getting up, rallying, and KOs him with spinning back fist. But he looks raw and he looks green. His takedown defense looks okay. His ground game looks okay. His striking looks okay. But everything's loopy. Everything's wild. He's not like a technical sound striker. When he fought Volkan is a technically sound striker. He just doesn't have the same output. So you would think that Rakic, who's sloppier, would just outpoint him. And that's what happens in the first round. The longer this fight goes, he can't take Volkan down. He tries lots to take down Volkan. Can't take him down. And then his striking's too loopy. Volkan starts intercepting him, starts beating him. I wonder if Anthony Smith's not the better striker. He is crisper on him. He is got a little more technique. But Rakic is supposed to make these improvements. So looking at Rakic's training situation, he's at American Top Team, Zagreb. It was in Croatia. Trains in Croatia. Hasn't left Croatia. Trains with the same Croatian training partners. I'm Croatian. I love Croatia. But you would have to go to like actual American ties. 28. Like, make those improvements, man. You're a top 5 contender. You arguably got robbed against Volkan Oezdemir. A lot of people scored the fight for Rakic. I bet Rakic. I wanted Rakic to win. I understood why he lost, but it was a very close fight. This kid is still only 28, young at the division. Why can't he be a future contender? Because he's not making improvements before fights. He's just he's the big dick in the gym, right? The big dog, I guess, is the real expression. But who's giving him rounds in the gym? Nobody. He's a top contender in the UFC, taking on a bunch of guys that might be getting ready for KSW prelims. Like, it's just not the same level. Whereas Anthony Smith, at least, he does have the better training. He is a better grappler. He has good gas tank. He has, when I consider Jimmy Manuwa, Devin Clark, Justin Ledet, Francimar Barroso lost to Volkan. Well, Anthony beat Volkan, but then also fought Alexander Gustafsson and John Jones and Shogun and Thiago Santos and Hector Lombard. Like, it's way different class. Yeah, right. But we have an expression on the show. Friends don't let friends bet on guys that lost Anthony Smith. We're certainly not going to let our friends bet on Anthony Smith.
If it was 5 rounds at this price, I would.
Yeah, it's just a bad price. I got the feeling Rakic is going to get the win here. Don't feel great about it. He's not as good as I thought he'd be. And I think a lot of that is he's yet to just develop. Similar to a Jake Matthews. How good could he have been? I think he could have been really good, but he just never left the confines of his own safe space. And as a result, he is good, but he's mid-level good. Rakic is in a thin division, so he's upper echelon thin division. But what has he really shown you that makes you think, like, yeah, man, he could get... Prior to losing to Volkan, people were like, man, he could give Jones a go. He's a fucking 6 striker. In hindsight, it's like, no, he wouldn't run a single round against John Jones. He's got a long way to go. Don't know he's put himself in a position to go that long way and achieve those things. So it's an interesting fight. I got Rakic. 275 is not a price tag I like. I would try to improve it by, like you were saying, take Rakic by decision. For as much as he is a crazy striker and he lands some big shots, Volkan's been in there with some great guys. He knows how to defend himself. He can take a shot Anthony Smith, he's been in there with top guys. He can wheel with the punches, and I think that maybe he survives those 3 rounds. Rakic picks up a decision. It's a better price. But outside of that, yeah, I think that's pretty much where I stand.
I see Rakic by decision around plus 240 out there right now.
Plus 240.
Yeah.
So I think that tells you kind of all you need to know about that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that that's that wide, to be perfectly honest. Anthony Smith has went 5 rounds with some of the best.
It's because they both have a perception of just going, like Anthony Smith goes out on a shield, right? Either he's going to finish you late or you're going to finish him late. But think about it. The Glover fight, Glover put him through a life-changing beating. And still it took him early in the fifth, I should say. But it took him till the 5th to take him out. But interesting to note that was a COVID card, right? He got a life-changing beating by Glover Teixeira 3 months ago. And now he's going to fight Alexander Rakic. Like, does that make any sense? No. Rakic was already getting ready for a fight. He was initially supposed to fight Nope, sorry. Doesn't have a fight listed. I think he was in camp already. But regardless, I just think that it's a bit of a steep price tag. You would want Rakic at 220. You would want Rakic at minus 185. I think that's where I would cap it personally. 85 to 220. But 275 is, he became the favorite. People steamed him because they liked him as the favorite. And at this point, you probably got to chase a prop or make him a parlay piece. Does he feel like a super comfortable parlay piece?
Not to me.
Right. Anthony Smith, for as much as we don't like him, how ironic would it be that he's the guy that shits in the pie? And it's very possible. So, grain of salt.
We got Neil Magny taking on Robbie Lawler. Neil Magny, a minus 250 favorite against former welterweight king Robbie Lawler, who can be out for plus 210. I know Robbie's lost his last 3 fights, Cody.
Against the best of the best.
Against the best of the best. Honestly, he went to decision against Cowboy. That was a really close fight. When you look through his record, he lost to Colby Covington, one of the best of the best. He was absolutely kicking the shit out of Ben Askren. And then he lost by that bolt. And then Ben Askren grabbed the whole... Ben Askren was almost dead. Then he grabbed the hold of the Bulldog choke and got the finish. He lost a decision to Rafael dos Anjos, former champion. Solid competition. Beats Cerrone. And that was a pretty competitive fight. So I don't think maybe losing the belt to Tyron Woodley, getting knocked out in that spot there.
Woodley,
We probably lost the best of Robbie Lawler. And trust me, on this show, I think Neil Magny's got to be up there with one of the most profitable fighters that I've had over the last 5-10 years. He's just usually undervalued.
Yeah, he's not 250 more. So.
Underpriced.
Minus 250.
You look through the course of his fights, and he's never this big of a favorite against scrub competition. So it's very, very alarming. He's minus 150 against Anthony Rocco Martin. He opened at minus 140 against Robbie Lawler. Makes more sense. He was a plus 210 underdog to Li Jingliang.
I know.
So all of a sudden, the book wakes up and says, we're going to drop a minus 250 on Neil Magny. It just doesn't make very much sense to me. My problem with Robbie, though, is that he doesn't attack the body all that often. I want to see somebody attack the body against. That's what Neil's shown to be his weakness. He's a skinny, tall, lanky guy. Shots to the body, kicks to the body. That seems to work the best. Robbie Lawler's volume isn't all that great. I feel like Robbie's path to victory is likely knockout or bust in this spot. He just doesn't stay active enough, and nobody stays more active than Neil Magny. I guess you could have a situation where Magny's throwing his little pitter-patter jabs, and Robbie lands the big ones and wins the rounds that way. But man, I've been tempted. I've been tempted to bet Robbie Lawler by knockout plus 460.
Robbie's got to get after it. He's got to get in there, and he's got to get after it early.
Oh, I want to see him because I mean, Robbie Lawler before quarantine and all of that stuff, he's never really on the radar. You don't really see him. You don't hear from him. I have no idea what the last 5 months has done for this guy. He had that breathing issue in the past as well, so you got to factor that in. But this line is very alarming. Tell me what you're thinking about it.
Okay, yeah. So with Robbie Lawler, he's taking the fight on short notice as well. He's stepping in for Jeff Neal, who got the COVID, I think, and then took it pretty hard. I think he was in ICU. Anyways, good thing that he's back out. But yeah, with Robbie Lawler, not only do you not really know where he's been at, he's taking the fight on short notice. So with Robbie, even though he's so classically trained and just in great shape and can do it all, I mean, in terms of generalists, we always talk about generalists on the show. Robbie Lawler's at the top of the generalists. Because he can strike with the best strikers, even though he's not the best striker. He can strike with them. He can wrestle with some of the best wrestlers, even though he's getting taken down. The guy's sturdy. He's sturdy as hell. Unfortunately, it's just he's letting the later rounds get away from him, largely based on output. He comes at you hot. He always does. He came at Colby Covington fucking hot. He came at Ben Askren fucking hot. He came at Rafael dos Anjos fucking hot. But after that, I mean, it's just Colby's just taking him down at will. And the Rafael dos Anjos fight, he blew out his knee, right? At this point, yeah, he's 200. You're going to bet him. If you're going to bet him, at least he's a fat underdog. But in terms of at 38 years old, Robbie Lawler has been through the ringer. was 19 years old when he made his UFC debut. I think he went to his girlfriend's prom, high school prom, and then fought in the UFC later that night. Like, the guy has just been around forever. So his 38 is an old 38. And now you see him fight elite level guys, but he's letting the moment get away from him a little bit. So I agree he's live with the knockout in that he needs to just get at it. Neil Magny, for as much skill as he has, the guys that have beaten him are just good strikers, good power, stand in the pocket, just go after him, get that knockout. Even guys like Jiang Li can give him a good first round. Anthony Martin gives him a good first round. It's that Neil Magny gets better as the fight progresses, and Robbie Lawler gets worse as the fight progresses. So if Robbie's going to win this fight, he's got to go out and get the job done early. One thing I think is going to make just a tremendous amount of problems for Robbie is like just going through it, right? So Colby Covington takes him down 10 times, absolutely washes him pillar to post. Can Magny wrestle like Colby? No. But does he chain wrestle? Yes, he does. And Robbie has more trouble with chain wrestling than try to double leg him in the open field. He will brick wall your ass in the open field. It's get him up against the cage and suffocate him and start tying up his wrists and start controlling him. That he has more trouble with. The Ben Askren fight, whatever. Ben Askren did take him down. He slammed Ben on his head. It's a bulldog. We don't even have to talk about that. Raphael fight. He has a good first round, blows his knee out apparently. And then he's just target practice. No volume, stands there, very flat-footed. Robbie's a flat-footed fighter, by the way. He doesn't move a whole lot. Once he gets tired, he just stands there and tries to counter. But then we go back to that win, the Donald Cerrone fight. People are kind of 50-50 on that fight. Did he win that fight? Did he not win that fight? Very close fight. Very close fight. That fight on July 29, 2017. Pat, does that date recognize? Do you recognize it?
Say the date again?
July 29, 2017.
Oh, it was my wedding.
Yeah, Pat got married that day. Pat has since had 2 kids, has a fulfilling career, started his own business that has taken off. The last time Robbie got a debatable win. Prior to that, he's knocked out by Tyron Woodley. And prior to that is the Carlos Condit fight. I want to bring it all the way back to there for a specific reason. I'll get to it. I know I'm rambling, but I'll get to it. The Carlos Condit fight was a fat-ass robbery. It's his only title defense. He wins the title off... he beats Johnny Hendricks. He beats Roy McDonald in an epic fight. And then there's that Carlos Condit fight. He wins a split, but it's like clear as day robbery. That fight, he got outstruck by Carlos Condit 176 to 92. Styled upon on Carlos Condit. Well, why is this Carlos Condit thing, why does that matter? Colby Covington's 5'11". Ben Askren's 5'10". Rafael Asenio's 5'8". Donald Cerrone's 6 foot. Tyron Woodley's 5'8". Carlos Condit is 6'1". Rory McDonald's 5'11". Johnny Hendricks is 5'9". Matt Brown's 5'10". Robbie Lawler has largely fought guys roughly his size. He can line up those guys. Carlos Condit 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Just shoot him apart from range. And yes, it's a long time ago. Neil Magny 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Sorry, he might have an 80-inch reach.
80-inch.
He has an 80-inch reach and he's 6'3", right?
Yeah, he's as long as you get it.
As much as I think his path to victory is tie up Robbie against the fence, he poses massive problems to Robbie in that Robbie's flat-footed and needs to enter the pocket.
Got to make up 6
guy's
inches
gonna hit
trying
him
to
and
get
move.
into the...
He's going to hit him and move. And then we go back to maybe Robbie gets him in the first round. The last time Robbie got a guy in the first round was when he got Josh Koscheck out in the first round, and that was 2013. He got Bobby Volker out early in the second round. That was also 2013. The other knockouts he has is third round against Jake Ellenberger, fifth round against Rory McDonald. He's not really a first-round knockout guy. He hasn't knocked out a guy in the first round in 7 years, over 7 years. So to think that he knocks out Magny in the first round, I don't know. I don't know that he does. And if he doesn't, then Magny's output, especially from the outside, Magny's control, and Magny's cardio, man, the guy just doesn't slow down. So I get he's also 33. He's not exactly a young prospect. But taking that it wasn't quite 2 years, but taking that time off after losing to Santiago Ponzinibbio, who, by the way, look at that one, knocked out in the fourth round.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen here, right? Robbie wouldn't catch him in the fourth round because the fourth round doesn't exist in this 3-rounder, and Magny would likely beat him at least 2-1. So I got Magny. I think Magny by decision, improved 250, and I think that you honestly look to live bet Magny after the first round because Robbie would probably have a good first round.
That's probably
and then you might be able to get
stop
Magny
me from betting Robbie Lawler by knockout.
Right. Well, then look at the live, yeah, because either Robbie knocks him out in the first, you don't got to worry about it, or it's a close first round, and then after that, you got to assume, especially in short notice, Robbie does this anyway, especially in short notice, one would have to assume that Magny takes over as 2 and 3 go and eventually gets it. So Magny by decision, Magny live bet after first round, all things I'm looking at.
All right. But you're not betting the minus 250?
Straight up?
You probably get a better price if you just wait. till after round one.
I would hope so, because as far as underdogs on this card, and they're also nice looking
you may
underdogs,
not.
right? As far as nice looking underdogs, it's like, okay, let's just say Ji-Yeon Kim, who's a big price tag. It's like, whoa, so untrustworthy. Bill Algeo making his UFC debut against Ricardo fucking Lamas. Ion Cutelaba, just the most untrustworthy guy going. Hannah Cifers, would you trust this guy? At least with Robbie Lawler, he's Robbie Lawler. He's ruthless Robbie Lawler. He was my favorite fighter when I was 12 years old. Him and Andrei Arlovsky, because the UFC had those like Ultimate Knockout 2 DVDs. The guy's been around. He's the man. You'd love to see him win. You'd feel better betting him at 210 because you know he's going to give you something. Those other fighters, it's like they might give you something, but who knows, man? Christina Aguilera at 325. Would you prefer that? Cifers, like we just talked about it. I don't know. At least with Robbie, he's got the sense of an underdog that's going to give you a bang for your buck. And Neil Magny's not a world beater. There's a path there. But my pick personally, I think the paths are there for Magny.
Fair. We got Alexa Grasso taking on Ji-Yeon Kim. Go Gadget Arms. Alexa Grasso, minus 320 favorite. Kim, plus 260. What are you thinking about this?
You got another fight where the price is just largely not very appealing. I mean, yes, Alexa Grasso is the favorite. Yes, Alexa Grasso should win this fight, probably by decision, just using superior boxing. She's a better striker. This fight figures to play out on the feet. I think she wins the decision. But 320 is just a big price tag, especially considering Alexa Grasso has always been touted as a super prospect, and she's been upset along the way quite a number of times. But the difference in all of those fights is poor Alexa Grasso. She is a nice technical boxer out of Mexico, good output, good volume, good cardio, and they've matched her up against Felice Herrig, who just wanted to take her down, did take her down, and Ronda Marcos, who she got a win over, but took her down multiple times. Tatiana Suarez, what? Who fights Tatiana Suarez and doesn't get taken down? Carla Esparza, her last time out. Carla Esparza with multiple takedowns on her. Literally, they've only matched her up with grapplers, and just the finest. Tatiana is the best wrestler in the division. Carla is the second best wrestler in the division. Ronda is amongst the top 5 wrestlers in the division. Felice Herrig, certainly at the time, is probably a top 15 wrestler in the division, but they're all good wrestlers, right? So you never really get to see what she's most comfortable at, and that's just outstriking you in the open field. When she fought Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Karolina did not take her down. And then if you look at the numbers on that fight, she lands like 170 significant strikes on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. So when you do get to see her in purely striking match, she actually outstrikes her 148 to 90. It's just like that's a fight where she doesn't have to worry about the takedowns. So now you look at Ji-Yeon Kim, and it's just right there, perfect for her. Here's a Sanda specialist. She's a Wushu black belt. She's a Hapkido black belt, and she's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. But I mean, her run in the UFC, Lucy Pitolova, Justine Kish, Melinda Fabian, both of those Kish and Fabian were split decisions. Kish beat her, by the way. Antonina Shevchenko styles on her, and Nadia Kasem, yo girl.
This is like the woat.
Weren't we just talking about Tatiana Suarez and Carla Esparza and Ronda Marcos and like actual contenders of the division? Like it's apples to oranges, man. It's not even
They're not fighting the same level.
But beyond that is that Grasso has the most trouble with the takedowns on those fighters, right? When I looked at Ji-Yeon Kim, not Ji-Yeon Kim. Ji-Yeon Kim. She's shot 1 takedown in the UFC, and that was her very first fight against Lucy Pitolova. She went 0-1 in that takedown, and then she never shot one against Kish, never shot one against Fabian, never shot one against Shevchenko, never shot one against Nadia Kasem. She will not shoot one against Alexa Grasso, and as such, she'll get outstruck, probably to the sum of 110, 120 to about 70. And I think Grasso takes the decision and beats her. Could Grasso take her out inside the distance? Suppose it's possible. But Shevchenko and Lucy Pitolova give her some good shots. She kind of hung around. She looks big for the division. She looks durable. She has those big arms. So maybe it's tougher for Grasso to get to the inside initially. Slows it down.
The problem with her,
Grasso wins, and I think Grasso takes
the problem with Kim's, like, that's why I called her Go Gadget Arms. 72 inch reach. She's got like there's like lightweights that she's got a longer reach than. And she's obviously fighting a 125-pound women's division. Yeah, she's got a 6-inch reach advantage here. But the problem is there's not really any sting on any of these punches. Like, I don't think she's going to knock out. It may slow Grasso down, like trying to work out the range and stuff like that at the beginning of the fight. But it's not like I don't think Ji-Yeon Kim's strikes are going to really, really keep Alexa Grasso from entering the pocket and delivering strikes. So I understand that she should be the favorite. 320. Maybe a little bit much, I'm sure.
We just talked about never betting women's fight ever again. I understand
she turns
320
up
doesn't
on-
look all that good,
If
does
she
it?
turns up on Cody Saftic's parlays, maybe I
Yeah,
have to play
she
that
will.
game.
Unfortunately, that's the way this card's playing out. You have a lot of these 3-1 favorites. We're going to have to tie them together.
All right. We got Ricardo Lamas taking on Bill Algeo. Ricardo Lamas, minus 260 favorite. Algeo plus 220. What you take here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough break for Bill Algeo, who's been around the game for a decent amount of time. But here's a guy making his debut, UFC, on short notice. Bright lights, first time. He fought on the Contender Series, but he lost on the Contender Series. Never got the contract, and now he gets to make his UFC debut opposite Ricardo Lamas, a 6-time WEC veteran, a 16-time UFC veteran. He's fought Jose Aldo for the world title at featherweight. He has wins over notable mainstays in the division. He's fought Max Holloway. He's fought Charles Oliveira, beat Charles Oliveira. My God. That's a tough UFC debut, man. You got to admit. And as accordingly, he's priced. Ricardo Lamas is a minus 260 favorite, and I fully understand it. You can make a total argument for Lamas being way past his prime. Here's another guy. We talk about Robbie. Robbie's 38, and he's got a lot of mileage. Ricardo Lamas also 38, and he's got some mileage. Knocked down his last fight against Calvin Kattar. Knocked out in spectacular fashion. Maybe one of the knockouts of the year against Josh Emmett. How much wear does that take on a fighter, especially as they get older? I completely understand.
Both of those guys are surging guys in
But
this
it's
division.
another case of competition. No, he didn't beat Calvin Kattar, who figures to probably get a title shot within the next few fights. No, he didn't beat Josh Emmett, who's a perennial top contender who could get a title shot. I don't see it, but is right up there. Mirsad Bektic was supposed to be, and he gave Bektic a good fight. The Darren Elkins fight, Darren Elkins is a top guy. He's fighting the creme de la creme, and Bill Algeo has been fighting Jeff Lentz in the local New Jersey and
Lost
Pennsylvania
to Brendan
scene.
Loughnane.
Yeah, and that was a decent fight. But his problem is that he's okay. So he's got a cool little story. Been training. I guess he said he started training in grade 8. And he does Muay Thai, and does jiu-jitsu, and he spent a little time training in Thailand. He's a BJJ black belt. He wrestled in high school. Apparently, he was like a state All-American. So didn't win a state title. Wasn't a state placer, but must have been in the state championship and was technically a state All-American in high school. He goes to Penn State, but not to wrestle. Goes to Penn State just to study and ended up being on the Penn State boxing team, which I did not even know was a real thing. But as far as his MMA career goes, and he's just too long and lanky. He's 6 foot at 145 pounds. And so as much as he might know how to wrestle, it's just a weird, awkward frame for a wrestler. Ricardo Lamas is going to he's a more credible wrestler. He's going to have the wrestling advantage. This kid's a black belt. Got his black belt, I think, in 2015. He was awarded it. But Ricardo Lamas is also a black belt and a much better black belt. I think he's just going to have him outnumbered there. As far as the striking goes, this kid, he was on the Penn State boxing team. Everything's super loopy, and he chucks everything, and it's almost as if he just dips his head and throws it. Lamas should just be able to just pick apart this guy standing, should be able to take him down and out-grapple him when he wants. He has the advantage quite literally everywhere.
Why is he only 260 then?
Well,
That's the number. When you look through the card and you see all these other big favorites, it's surprising to see Lamas, the guy with seemingly the biggest advantages in terms of experience over any of their opponents.
I think that people look at Lamas as a similar case to Robbie Lawler. Said he's just not fighting at his optimal self anymore. He's fighting top end guys, but he's not giving a great account of himself. Kattar just smokes him out of there. The Darren Elkins fight, he beat Elkins late, but he lost the first round against Elkins. It's a close fight against Darren Elkins, who he figures to have all the same advantages. Can he out wrestle Darren Elkins? Can he out grapple Darren Elkins? Can he out strike him? Yeah, but it's still a dirty fight. As far as Mirsad Bektic, Josh Emmett, you know what I mean? So now, when was the last time he really looked good? Jason Knight and Charles Oliveira. He looked awesome in those fights, but they're respectively 3 and 4 years ago. So then you get the idea of, wow, he looked okay at 35, and 36, 37, and 38 haven't been as kind to him. Bill Algeo, maybe he's the young guy busting in. Maybe he can do something. I just don't see the past for Bill Algeo, because as much as he is a BJJ black belt. Again, Lamas is a better BJJ black belt, and that figures to be his biggest path to victory outside of a lucky punch knockout. But Algeo's stepping in on short notice. This fight would never get put together reasonably on an 8-week camp, right? But he's stepping in to fill in for Ryan Hall. So all the problems that he figures to pose maybe with his jiu-jitsu, Lamas be way ahead of it. He was training for Hall, in which he didn't want to engage him on the ground. He would have just stuffed the takedowns and beat him up standing. I think he can do the same thing to Algeo, but now he can mix in the takedowns to make it more decisive. I got Lamas here. Lamas feels good. Lamas feels safe, but 38, coming off a loss, got knocked out. He was also made of steel, this guy. This guy could take a fucking hit. But he is getting knocked out by colossal hitters in Emmett and Cater. Maybe the chin's starting to go a little bit. Maybe the desire is going a little bit. Maybe all these different things in his life are starting to take over a little bit. I don't know. But if you've been watching Contender Series, the guys from MMA Masters that have popped up on the show, dude, they're looking fucking awesome.
His butt.
And I think he'll be ready. And I think he takes Bill. He should take Bill to school, really.
This week's episode, that guy from MMA Masters, what's his name?
Yeah, Silva. Yeah, the guy, he got the guillotine, right? He's the Titan champ.
That guy is like filthy jacked.
No, yeah. I know.
Like
he looked like Jacques.
That guy
with a full
takes
head
his
of hair.
vitamins for sure.
That was a fun fight.
I mean, yeah, and that guy fights at 145, so that's like his roll around every single day training partner, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think he's going to be in good shape, and I think that it was a big spot for him versus Ryan Hall because that's a very winnable fight over a guy that nobody wants to fight, and it's
funny on Tapology.
like a name
76% of users in Tapology
had Hall.
winning that.
I can see it because Hall, we never think he's going to win, and then he just, his striking's way better. Oh, nobody takes him down. So
Well, I
they
mean,
just
his
stand there,
grappling
and
is
he
the
just
big
kicks
X
and kicks.
factor. If he can get a hold of you,
Yeah.
like you're in trouble.
Lamas quite
Anybody
literally has the
is.
advantage everywhere here. 260 makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
The one thing that you're saying makes that it does feel like a trap is that he's way safer than Grasso, who's 320, and he's safer than Rakic, who's 275.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it that he's a big favorite? Yeah, we get it, and I understand that. But why is more money coming in on those guys when it's just
Yeah, it's surprising.
could be. I have Lamas, but it could be. It's got the sense of a trap line.
Magomed Ankalaev takes on Ion Cutelaba in my pick for fight of the night. I mean, if we can extend this more than 38 seconds, these guys fought not that long ago. I think Cutelaba got a little bit dazed or whatever, but he was kind of doing like a fake. He was kind of trying to suck Ankalaev into a barn burner, and that I think Cutelaba knew that's the only way he could win the fight. Minus 335 Ankalaev, plus 275 Cutelaba. I mean, if Cutelaba can bring him into a firefight like he did in the first 38 seconds, and they have a referee who doesn't step in when it's pretty unanimously agreed upon. Like, that was a bad stoppage. I mean, Cutelaba's a bit of a goofball. He always dresses up in green. And faking that you are stumbling or hurt, not a good idea with a referee who's there to try to protect you. So I understand. I'm not like attacking the referee, but like as soon as who's kind of doing this, right?
Yeah, it was a weird stoppage, but
and then as soon as the ref jumped in because he thought that he was actually dazed. He's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" Like, he was obviously rope-a-doping. The ref was not wise to that going on. I mean, it's hard if the beginning of this fight looks the exact same way as the last time these two guys fought. Do you really want to lay minus 335? I think Ankalaev is the better all-around fighter, cleaner technique, of course. But you want to lay minus 335 on a fight that starts out hot like that? That's risky business. It's hard to jump aboard Cutelaba, obviously, just based on the fact that he's a bit of a goofball. And he is outclassed in just about every single discipline in this fight. I don't know. What do you think about this one? I can't get on board. If Ankalaev is going to get dragged into a crazy war like he was the first 38 seconds of the last time that they fought, I can't jump on board paying that type of price for a guy who's going to have that type of game plan.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that was a crazy fight. I mean, it looked like just, if any of these from Cutelaba land, Ankalaev's folding over. And Ankalaev hit Cutelaba with some good shots. Cutelaba was taking them. So who knows how it progresses? Who knows how it could have gone? Who knows if that rope-a-dope technique would have worked? You know who invented the rope-a-dope? Very famous for it. One Muhammad Ali. Also one of the reasons he ended up with Parkinson's. Rope-a-dope, bad technique, pal. Don't just take shots. Don't pretend you're hurt to get your opponent to get overzealous so that he hits you a bunch more. It's like, defend yourself. And I could never get behind Cutelaba. Listen, from what I saw in that 38 seconds, Ankalaev kicked his ass, and it was an early stoppage. Cutelaba didn't hit Ankalaev, didn't hurt him, didn't do nothing. He was swinging fucking fastballs like, holy shit. If they did land, they could have seriously done something, but they didn't land. Ankalaev was gauging it. He knew it was up. He was well aware. The other thing is that there's the element of surprise. The last time, Cutelaba runs across the ring and storms him. But this time, it's like, okay, if you do that, I'm going to take you down. If you do that, I'm going to have something ready for you. If he does rope-a-dope and he pretends to be hurt, He tried it already. You kind of got a better gauge. Yeah, it only lasted 38 seconds, but Ankalaev should be in charge. Ankalaev is a legitimate prospect. This guy is the shit. He comes to the UFC, he's undefeated. He should be a sky's the limit prospect. He dominated 14 minutes and 55 seconds of the fight with Paul Craig and got caught. Outside of that, he's been back to almost fucking perfect again. The Marcin Prachnio fight, he doesn't even have to take him down. And Prachnio's garbage. But he just knocks him on the first round. Cool. Klidson Abreu dominates Klidson Abreu, who was known as the Russian Terror. That Dalcha fight, his cardio checked out, his striking checked out, everything checked out. He front kicks him in the third round, knocks him out later. Now, I'm always worried about Russians getting tired. This guy, not getting tired. This guy's wrestling, pretty good. This guy's striking, pretty good. He's got everything I want. He's never been knocked out.
Think he beats the guys in the main event?
I think he's still green. I think he's still got a ways to go. But whereas the UFC's rushing, Rakic fought a bunch of bums and then gets Volkan Oezdemir. And now he's getting Anthony Smith. And we're talking about, geez, he's still green. He's still developing. And Ankalaev, he's 28 as well. He's the same age as Rakic. He's in a better training position. He's getting better every fight. And they've given him winnable fights. This Cutelaba fight, I just beat this guy. You want me to fight him again? Sure. And I'll beat him again. I understand 100% what you're saying. Cutelaba just throws caution to the wind. But Cutelaba, as we're talking about Ankalaev's a legit prospect, Cutelaba's a busted prospect. This guy was sky's the limit too when he came to the UFC. He just doesn't win. That's what he does. He shows up green and he throws bombs and he gets in your face, but he gasses out the longer the fight goes. His European Sambo Championship, it's good for stopping a few takedowns, but outside of that, I mean, he just muscles everything. His striking's muscled, his grappling's muscled, everything's muscled, and he gets tired. And I always used to joke about those Moldovan supplements, but like whatever Moldovan supplements he is on, and I'm sure he is on something, it ain't helping his cardio, dog. He just throws caution to the wind. So Ankalaev would have defeated him. If the ref doesn't stop it, I think Ankalaev beats him. If the ref doesn't stop it here, fine. Ankalaev's going to get a chance to show that. And I think Ankalaev beats him. 335, it's just an indicator of, most people think he did win that first fight, and he'll do the same thing and win it again. It is a big price tag. I'd love to take Ankalaev inside the distance, but Ankalaev's actually a really smart fighter. He doesn't love to go out and bum rush people. That was Cutelaba's doing. That was him just fighting fire with fire.
And that's kind of what Cutelaba
He's
does
a way
every single
more
fight.
just loves to take guys down and grind them, and the striking is just like he controls the tempo and grinds at you. And that he'd love to win a decision if it was up to him. And for that reason, I don't necessarily feel chasing better than 335 with inside the distance or by decision. I think if I was going to take it, it would just be 335. That's not a great thing to have straight up. So again, it becomes a parlay piece, and it's a dangerous parlay piece based on how Cutelaba fights. But I don't see Cutelaba pulling the rabbit out of the hat here. I got to think my boy Magomed Ankalaev pulls through, and he's the pick.
Cutelaba, since his debut against Misha Shirkinov that he lost, arm triangle choke round 3.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Wilson went to decision and actually
his 3 wins
but
over
his last,
they're all guys
1,
that are
2,
cut.
3, 4, 5, 6 hasn't been past 334 of the second round.
Yeah, so he's not
So
going
under
to
1.5.
He's probably not
under
going to
1.5 plus 100. I see out there. That would be. I think Cutelaba has just decided like, hey, my brand is I'm the shit-eating wild man in the 205-pound division. I'm going to be the entertaining guy because he knows he's went up against some decent competition and knows that he probably can't hang at this level. I think he's just going to be an entertaining fighter, and I'm all for it. I enjoy.
So what you're saying is if this was the WWF in like the late 90s, he'd be like Gold Dust, where he doesn't ever beat anyone, but it's like, oh, Gold Dust, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I feel it. I'd also like to point out that as much as he is the European Sambo champion and the guy, when Misha grappled him, it was like, oh my God, this is non-competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Glover, who's a BJJ black belt and got good wrestling, grappled him, it was like, oh, non-competitive. Ankalaev doesn't have to head kick him this time. He doesn't have to throw hands. He could literally just take him down and do the same thing. I think he's got multiple avenues. I got to take it.
Ankalaev doesn't really use it because the one prop that I did see that looked absurd to me. He doesn't really Ankalaev. We don't see very much grappling from 19-1 to win by submission. That seems nuts.
You know what? That does seem nuts. Yeah. I mean, if you're chasing props, at least that's a big juicy price tag.
19-1.
That's yeah. That seems pretty absurd to be honest.
Mm-hmm. All right,
so based on what you guys have said so far, Cody.
Yeah.
Would you go a Lamas Ankalaev parlay for -120?
Yeah, I'm looking at an Ankalaev Lamas parlay. I'm looking at an Ankalaev Grasso parlay. And he's making me think a little bit with Robbie. But honestly, prior to filming this show, I'm thinking an Ankalaev Neil Magny parlay. I think if Ankalaev if he's your anchor and he's going to win, then those other guys that feel safe, you can get them all at minus 110. You can get them all. But if he loses, he fucks it all. So maybe I don't go fully on him. But honestly, he feels like he's my better guy. I feel like him, what you're saying, him and Lamas at minus 10 is good. The problem is when I tweet out the parlays, there'll be a Lamas, Ankalaev, Grasso, and Magny parlay. There'll be an Ankalaev, Lamas, Grasso, Magny, Rakic parlay. The longer you get, one of them's going to shit in the pie. By making Ankalaev the anchor, I'm thinking he's my least likely to shit in the pie. But it's not him shitting in the pie as much as it's young Cutelaba breaking the fucking front door down, stealing the pie, and just fucking shitting in it. Because, it's like, Ankalaev didn't do anything wrong. It's like Cutelaba is just an absolute wild
He's
card.
a shit-eating wild.
Yeah, but that's gotta not. Didn't they fight 10 times? Does he land that shot? Yeah, maybe at least once. And geez, he is 335, so they got it priced accordingly. But no, I'm going with the 90% of the time. The better fighter wins. Ankalaev is the better fighter. Russians have been good. Good Russians win. The bad Russians you always avoid. Sums up. And they're not so great. Ankalaev's a good Russian. Outside of losing that one time. You know what? Here's the other thing. Greasy theory for it.
And he was up probably like 30, 25, 26 on all the scorecards.
Yeah. And here's a greasy theory for you, just because I don't think I've done one in a while, and that Hogarth's speaking to me. But Ankalaev comes from Russia. He's undefeated. His UFC debut. Guy looks fucking awesome. Just came from Russia. So obviously the mob's like, you owe us one. You owe us one. Loses to Paul Craig. He's a minus 750 favorite over Paul Craig. Didn't take any damage. I mean, what a great way to throw a fight. Doesn't take any damage. And with 1 second left, I got a moral victory in the bag. These mob guys are going to kill me if I fuck this up. Gives him the triangle, takes the tap, and since then, he's a free man. He's allowed to show you what he's made out of, and he looks good, dude. Since he's been fighting legit.
Yeah, he's literally looked
good.
bad for about 10 seconds of his UFC career.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
because the Paul Craig triangle
he's been dominating
happens in slow
pillar to
motion.
post in pretty much every other matchup.
And then the last thing here is that Paul Craig actually has like the most triangle wins in UFC history.
He does have
so
a very good
if you're gonna lose to a guy by his one, it's like getting guillotined by Cody McKenzie. It's like,
yeah,
shit's gonna happen, man. The guy's got a fucking Alaskan Solomon boat grip on him.
The other thing is, when I showed Paul like last week when I ended up winning, so I won 2 ways. You guys talked me when I wanted to have the huge dog on the card. With just blindly betting it, you said the only way she could win was inside the distance. So I parlayed that 14-1 with that jabroni who lost in the first match at 14-1, but his opponent got canceled, so the parlay got wiped out. So I just got the straight 14-1, which really turned out to be great.
Go.
But the other way I did it too was I played instead of just playing a straight parlay, I basically took 7 fights and I did a 4-fight round robin. So I had to bet 35 times what I would normally bet, but I ended up cashing big on it. So.
Pat won money last week.
Yeah, would you
Well,
think
when you
about
hit us 12-1, by the way, she went off at like, it went off like closer to fight time. I looked at it, it was like minus 1650. I was like, who's still betting it at this point?
Yeah,
like, why is it still
You
going?
can't add that to part, especially in that division.
I know.
someone dropped like $100K on her to win. And
No, so while I saw
was that
someone
like a
drop
Rovell
20,
tweet? Like,
no, someone legitimately dropped 25,000 to win $1,600, and she lost. But I mean, that's a shot in the glass to like big bettors. So like, whatever. Like,
still bad.
no, fucking terrible. You know
That's
what?
just bad handicapping.
Yeah.
You may have lots of money, but it's just like you're not finding a way to.
There's no edge there. The other thing is that the fight goes off. She's 16-1, right? And then after the first round, she won the first round. I seen that she was 10-1 after the first round. So even though she banked around, it was just like, this is not what a 16-1 is supposed to look like. Let's just drop it to 10. And then sure enough, not so good.
Well, consider
But,
this.
Pat was on it.
Yeah, just blindly, because that's what you got to do. But when I bet Floyd Mayweather to beat Conor McGregor, he was minus 300 by the time I bet it.
That's like a once in a lifetime value.
Will never happen again, sadly. Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's talk about the first underdog of the card, Paul.
Oh, it sounds like you like coconut bombs. Who takes on Kasanganay from Dana White Contender Series fame, very recent fame. Minus 125, Kasanganay. Coconut bombs can be had for plus 105. Sounds like you are betting coconut bombs.
Oh, wait, quick question. Is this a men or women's fight? I
It's
can't
a
tell based
men's
by
fight.
these names.
Mackie versus Impa. Yeah, I guess you're right.
You were saying that there was the first underdog on the card.
Yeah, no, I agree. So when you look at the underdogs so far, Anthony Smith 235, Lawler 210, Jeon Kim 260, Bill Algeo 220, Cutelaba 275. So these aren't just underdogs; these are massive underdogs. This is just a small little underdog at best. It's plus 105, but at least here is on paper competitive fight: Mackie Pitolo versus Kasanganay.
These guys are like welterweights fighting at middleweight. By the way, they do not have the frames. You look at their sizes; these guys do not really seem like natural middleweights.
No, and I think that plays better towards versus Mackie Pitolo, sorry, because even though he has fought at 170 versus Callum Potter, and then he's looked better at 185, I believe. It's just like styles make fights, and his style is coconut bombs. He likes to stand there, he likes to box. He's a good boxer, likes to work the body, has good variety with his hands, and he's got good power. Just wants to strike with you. When he's on the Contender Series against Justin Sumter, you saw what his boxing looks like against lower level competition, but he looks good. As far as his run in the UFC goes, yeah, it's been a mixed bag. He looked awful against Callum Potter. I think we all can agree on that, but that's at 170. Back at 185, the Charles Byrd fight, listen, he gets taken down early. Doesn't look particularly good, but his cardio is okay. Keeps the fight going a little bit longer, and he knocks out Charles Byrd. Now the fight against Darren Stewart, it's not that he looked bad, but Darren Stewart's out grappling him, and then, oof, what a nasty guillotine. He catches him in. But here's a guy that's just, he had some bad spots with some grappling. Guillotine checks him, man, I don't know. As far as stand-up striking goes, that hasn't been his problem. It's the variables of MMA. Are you an MMA fighter? Are you a boxer? Are you a guy that's just trying to fight with small gloves, or can you do it all? Mackie Pitolo hasn't shown you he can do it all. The Charles Byrd fight, he shows some grappling. And the Darren Stewart fight, he shows some grappling. It's just he's at a disadvantage. At least with Impa, it doesn't really factor to have much of a grappling advantage. He seems very, very green. He played college football collegiately, and I think it was like D3, but the guy seems like a pretty good athlete. It's that when you see him, he very much looks like a good college athlete, got into MMA, and is figuring it out as he goes. He's a good mid-range kickboxer. He's not a good long-range kickboxer, and he's not a good short-range kickboxer. He's a good mid-range guy. Likes to stay in that mid-range, throw some leg kicks, throw some hands, keep you honest. I think Pitolo has a striking advantage, so Impa needs to work the ground game. Everybody else is having success against Pitolo with the ground game. I just feel like he's raw there. He's a little bit green in that department. So as far as two guys that are both kind of perceived as being green, and they're both kind of lower level, this guy's got an 18-day turnaround, right? Coming off Contender Series to the UFC, bright lights. Pitolo's been here before. He'd be more settled. If this is a striker versus striker battle, and that's kind of what I'm figuring it to be, I think Pitolo's got enough to edge this guy out, hurt this guy, do enough to get that decision. He's plus 105. We've so far taken 5 big favorites.
I mean, I haven't really taken anything.
Right, and you can pass on a lot of these fights as well because they're not great prices, but especially after last week's card, which is a total pass, top to bottom, at least here it's like, okay, there's some guys you like. There's just,
Man,
they're not
these
the
Vegas cards
prices
are such
you
a
like.
shit show, though. It's just
Yeah, let's go back to Fight Island. Those were
Man, why aren't we at Fight Island?
less cancellation.
Everything was clean. Everything was taken care of. They had their medical staff over there. In Vegas, you have people running around the strip, and it's like, sure, of course, every single week someone gets COVID. Like when they're in Vegas, it seems that's the case. So it's like you don't even really know what to bet, where to bet until they actually show up on fight day, because everything is so kind of chaotic while they're in Vegas. It feels like.
No, I hear you. But the last thing that I want to just throw out on Kasanganay is that, just going back to the fact that he's very green, is that he's fought twice in the this is his last 3 fights. He fights Devorius Tubbs, who's 4-3. He wins a split decision over a 4-3 fighter. That fight was 1 year ago. 1 year ago. He took a split decision over a 4-3 fighter. Then he gets his fight with Kalen Hill on the Contender Series, wins, and they say, listen, I know we give everybody a contract. Quite literally, everybody gets a contract. This guy's too green, man. And they turn him away. He took a year off after they turned him down, and then just fought Anthony Adams 18 days ago. And I can tell you, I watched the fight, I'm sure you did too, he looked really green, man, and should not have gotten a contract. Anthony Adams, I know him, Sugarfoot, Colorado guy, Team Wildman, shout out, Thomas Denny, my boy. But like, come on, man. So now he's getting Pitolo, who legit earned his contract. He fucked up Justin Sumter. Came to the UFC, looked awful at 170. We're giving him a pass there. Maybe we shouldn't, but we are. And then at least Charles Byrd, you know, a guy that's a little more established, and he beat him.
Charles Byrd is a one-round fighter.
Yeah, and Darren Stewart's got some skills. Darren Stewart's beaten some guys. Like, these aren't just flub of the middle, you know, Tavorius Tubbs type guys. So I feel like Kasanganay could be okay, but he's only 26, very green. He needs to lose a couple fights, learn from those mistakes, and get better. He's just a young, green, undefeated fighter. Give me the guy. I know it sounds crazy to take the guy with 6 losses over the guy who's undefeated, but Magny Pitolo quite literally almost has as many losses as Kasanganay has pro fights. And we're going to get that when we talk about
considerably higher level of competition. Coconut bombs.
Yeah. And actually, that point I just made about the losses compared, that I meant to make that point, and we'll move on, obviously. But yeah, Ricardo Lamas, Bill Algeo, or sorry, it wasn't Lamas Algeo. It was Rakic, Anthony Smith. Like Anthony Smith has 15 losses. Rakic has 14 pro fights. Crazy. But anyways, that's experience for you. I think Pitolo's experience in this case will play dividends and get him the win.
We got Mallory Martin taking on Hannah Cifers. Mallory Martin, minus 325 favorite. Cifers, plus 265 Cifers on a 3-fight losing streak. I mean, they're throwing her to the wolves, though.
Are they? Is this
Well,
the
no.
Wolves? Is this considered the
mean,
Wolves poll?
It felt like, I mean, they've been setting her up in fights that I feel like she was on a
They have been throwing her the Wolves,
she was on a decent run.
I suppose.
She was on a decent run. She was, she had the Pollyanna Viana, busted prospect.
Yeah, we'll
Josie
talk
Escobar
about her in a bit.
never really belonged here in the division. Angela Hill, Mackenzie Dern. I mean, she was thrown to Dern to lose.
And Hill.
And then Agapova, that one looked less bad until Shayna Dobson did what Shayna Dobson did last week. So, yeah, Mallory Martin coming off of, a second round rear naked choke loss to Verna Jandadroba, obviously one of the best grapplers in the division.
Excusable.
That's excusable. Minus 325, debuting, or 6-3 UFC woman in this division. I don't know. As we've kind of said on a lot of these fights, it's just like the favorites are just so juiced this week. It's tough to really find spots that you really want. I'm definitely not betting on Hannah Cifers after what I've seen in her last 3 fights. I'll tell you that much. But are we getting on board Mallory Martin 325? Like I don't know. We were just talking about Mayo. Mayo dunked on us last week.
This is a dunkable spot.
This is not a plus 900 spot, but like we can't be laying chalk on these types of lower level women's fights.
Yeah, no, I'd like to say if anything, you just dog or pass here because it's an absurd price to pay on this type of matchup. And yeah, as much as Hannah Cifers hasn't looked good in her last few fights, it's better competition. At least as this represents a step down in competition. And yeah, I don't know. It's just more of an unpredictable matchup. I totally agree she should be the underdog, but plus 265. I don't know. As far as the 3-fight losing streak goes, Angela Hill was a top contender. Mackenzie Dern, who she was looking good against. The fight didn't really last all that long, but she was looking okay against. And then, yeah, right, Agapova just smokes her out. That's a hindsight victory. Oh, geez, maybe Agapova's not that good. Who knows? But all the same, at least she's fighting some of the top-ish fighters, some of the better competition available for her. Whereas with Mallory Martin, 325 on a fighter who's 6-3. She's effectively 0-1 in the UFC. Remember we were just talking about fighters who didn't get a contract on Contender Series? That was her. She didn't get the contract on Contender Series. She fought once for Invicta, won that fight by decision, and then gets Vernon Jandadroba. You talk about getting tossed to the Lions. That's tossed to the Lions. And by the way, she didn't last very long against a Lion, did she? There's levels to it. She's just not at that level. Cifers has fought and is also not at that level. I'd love to just take that dogger pass. I really would. But Hannah Cifers, one thing, I just can't get around. She's 5'1". Mm-hmm. And as much as she is tough and she is rugged, and Martin's only at 5'4", it's just like there's just not enough there. Tough and rugged only gets you so far. Martin figures to probably have a striking advantage and probably has a grappling advantage. If she doesn't have the striking advantage, it's enough striking to set up takedowns, grind on this girl, try to defeat her that way. I mean, Hannah Cifers will give you a good go. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. She knows if she loses, she's getting cut. She's going to go for it. She feels better at 265 than some of those underdogs that we talked about higher up on the card. But am I just chasing a big old underdog here? Because that's probably what it is. This is I
don't have the stones to drop money on Hannah Cifers at this point.
But the way we've seen some of these women's matches play up, it's like pass seems like the way. But Pat made that comment last week, which we didn't really take to heart. What he said last week is if you were to bet all of these big price underdogs, would you be up or down? It's like, yeah, I guess you would be up. So if you were following that trend, you would just fade Mallory Martin. Again, there's a 6-3 fighter. She's a 66% win percentage. She's 0-1 in the UFC. She was considered too green to get a UFC contract just 2 fights back against Hannah Cifers, who at least, comes in and throws down. Tough old North Carolina girl, bales hay in the summertime and fights in her free time. Like, you could do worse. But I think if you were a smart man, you'd probably take a pass on this one.
So, since the COVID restart, basically, since the people have been taking fights on short notice or whatever it might be, it seems like an awful lot of these either green prospects or young fighters who people just assumed were going to be really good have all lost.
A lot of them, yeah.
It's been an old man's game, it feels like, during COVID.
Well, yeah, no, and I think that a lot of the time you think prospect, you think, oh, geez, Mallory Martin, she's 26, and she's outside of Vernon Janadroma. That's a who cares about that? She's looked pretty okay, and she trains that elevation fight team. She's got good cardio. Her team is just on another level. Neil Magny's on the card, so she's at a good camp alongside a top fighter. The coach is all going to be there. It's team camaraderie. How could you not? But there's little variables, and a little variable would be, her last fight against Janjanova is in December of 2019, right? So she's fought, it hasn't quite been a year, it's been 8 months, right? Hannah Cifers has lost all 3 of those fights in 2020. She lost to Angela Hill in January. She lost to Mackenzie Dern in May. She lost to Agapova in June, and now she's taking this fight in August. She's fought fucking 3 times this year, and
They got her on speed dial. You're like, ready?
Right. So she's gonna be ready to go.
Catch this L?
She's gonna be ready to go. Mallory Martin might be a little rusty. Mallory Martin hasn't really looked all that good when she had full camps, and now she's on an 8-month layoff, and now she's over an opponent who's tough. Wiley knows she's about to get cut. And her only 2 wins in the UFC, Jodie Escobar and Polyana Viana, she quite literally just out-toughed them. Yeah. And she could out-tough out.
So Cifers round 1 plus 1,500. Thank you.
God.
325 says that she is a better favorite than Ricardo Lamas, says she's a better favorite than Alexa Grasso, she's a better favorite than Neil Magny, she's a bigger favorite than Alexander Rakic. Like, that I'm not fully agreeing.
I'm not, yeah.
Should she be the favorite? Yeah. Should this be priced closer to, again, if I had to cap it personally, I'm thinking like 175 Mallory Martin to minus 210. Like, 325 just seems excessive. And $8,900, like, she had better on DraftKings, like, she had better get in there and take out Cifers fast, man.
Yeah, I'm avoiding that. I'm avoiding that fight on DraftKings completely. We got Zach Cummings taking on Alessio Di Chirico. Zach Cummings minus 105, Di Chirico minus 115. Basically a straight pick 'em. Who you got here?
Yeah, I really never like betting Alessio Di Chirico, but because we're in the business of making a pick here, it almost seems like a gaff to go with Alessio Di Chirico. He is not impressive in the slightest bit. Again, he's another guy that I would classify as a generalist. He can strike a little bit, he can wrestle a little bit, he can grapple a little bit. He doesn't do anything exceptionally well. His chin's pretty good. His cardio's okay. He can will a win there. But as if he's fighting mid-level competition or a higher-level competition, he's just not in it. I like that, again, he's durable enough to stay in it, maybe grease out some rounds here and there. Seems like he's going to be more of a decision guy. Most of his wins in the UFC coming, obviously, by way of decision, and not the prettiest of decisions. Is he getting better? Yeah, but he's already 30 years old. I don't think he's ever going to be a contender. I don't think he's ever going to be good. But he's, like, solid enough. Zach Cummings, when Zach Cummings was at his best, kicks this guy's ass. Zach Cummings ain't at his best. Zach Cummings at 36 is one of those old-timey 36-year-olds. But beyond that, Zach Cummings' biggest advantage, he reinvented himself. Here's a guy that fought Tim Kennedy in Strikeforce at 185. Here's a guy that fought Ryan Jimmo in MFC way back in the day at 205. Comes to the UFC and he's just no good. But he cuts down to 170. And boy, oh boy, Paul Shaughnessy. Is Zach Cummings a big welterweight? And he just can take a shot and he toughs through and he breaks these guys down. And now he's getting a little bit older. He's gone back to 185 and I just don't see it. Those physicality, the threat that he posed with his strength and all that, that's now wiped off the table. And he's going to struggle to get the guys down. He needs to strike with them. He's a herky-jerky striker. He tries to set up his punches. But I think Di Chirico, it's going to be a decision. I think it's going to be a close decision. The line's pretty well close here. Minus 115, minus 105. And I think Di Chirico is going to be the guy that does a little bit more, is a little bit cleaner with what he ends up doing in there. Cummings could come at him. Cummings could make this a dirty fight. If Cummings makes this a dirty fight, then maybe he's the guy that ends up getting the benefit of the decision. But I feel like Di Chirico is just going to stay out of harm's way and just outclass him just a little bit, take the decision. Minus 115, yeah, that's priced accordingly. Funny on DraftKings, it's an even money fight, but Di Chirico is $7,800 on DraftKings, but we'll talk about that later. But beyond that, I think if you do take Di Chirico, you'd want a plus money sign on it just because it's a close, greasy fight. So I would take Di Chirico by decision. He's not a finisher. Cummings is durable. I think he beats him by decision. and that's how I would get a plus money, turn it into a dog play, so to speak.
That's a plus 190, by the way.
Plus 190, yeah. So that's how you turn an even money fight into a plus 190 underdog. I do not see him knocking out Cummings. Cummings just went 3 with Amari Akhmedov. He's been known to beat guys later in. He hasn't been finished in 3 years, and that's when he was getting caught in submissions by top guys like Nathan Coy and Alexander Yakovlev. You'll say top guys, fuck you talking about Coy, but come on, man, those guys are good grapplers. Nathan Coy was literally the captain of American Top Team. And Alexander Yakovlev, he's got a submission game. Comparing that to Alicio Di Chirico, then what submission game? It's not the same level. He doesn't submit him. He doesn't knock him out. He would have to grease him. If you don't want to take Di Chirico or Cummins, what's fight just to go to decision? It'll still be minus money. No way.
It's minus 220.
Well, there you go. If you didn't, on a card where everybody else is 260 and 300, maybe that sounds good to you. I got fight going the distance. If you are going to take either Cummins or Di Chirico, get yourself a better price and take them by decision. My pick's Di Chirico by decision, but I'll leave you with that.
Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres takes on Kevin Kroom. Caceres minus 205. Kroom coming in on incredibly short notice after fighting 2 weeks ago to a 5-round absolute war. It's plus 165. Bruce Leroy was supposed to take on.
You know what? It just got canceled, I think.
Did it right now again?
Yeah, well, it's not listed on Tapology, and right at the bottom
What
it says
isn't?
Kevin Kroom versus Bruce Leroy, and right at the bottom it says fizzled. So I just said the fight just never came together.
Oh,
Kroom might not be able to get his medicals or
let's
something.
skip it.
Caught it right in time.
I'll
It was listed 20 minutes ago.
I'll
by the way,
research
but it's
into this
not.
and I'll see what's up.
And it looks. I mean, I trust.
Check out him.
I trust
Twitter will know.
Tapology when we look on that.
Yeah.
I mean that's gonna be a bigger thing for DraftKings when we talk about it later.
Yeah, because he was going to be 7,400.
Kevin Caceres is going to be a minus 205 favorite at 74. He's never been historically a great DraftKings player, but I mean, you were gonna probably he was gonna end up being the chalk of the card, so that changes everything. Let's just move on.
So I got
COVID, as we were just talking
I think
about
Kroom
a second
probably
ago.
has medicals and shit.
we have
Things are crazy.
blue check mark.
Guy took an absolute beating last
some
time.
blue check mark person, Malk.
Mark Raymondi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah, he says UFC officials say Kroom will not actually be fighting now. Still looking for a replacement though.
Yeah,
So
welcome
check in at a later
welcome
date.
to
This is all these cards,
welcome to
by the way.
COVID cards in Vegas. Nothing. We can't even get through an episode with the card staying intact these days. All right, so that one's off. Let's just skip it. We got the next one. I don't even think I put this one on any of our graphical boards. Here we go. Because I can't be hurt by either one of these girls again. Emily Whitmire takes on Polyana Viana. Minus 120 Whitmire. Or plus 100 Viana. The only thing I think that's going to happen here is somebody's catching an armbar from guard.
This is arm bar from guard.
And I don't know
101.
which side.
Yeah, logic says Polyana Viana because she knows jiu-jitsu, but does she know jiu-jitsu?
Because she
has not
likes getting
really.
armbarred from guard.
Just it's you look at her jiu-jitsu credentials, like as far as what is on paper, like what she's done in a gi and whatnot. It's like, oh man, this is an exciting fighter for the UFC. She'd be able to just with that kind of skill set in a thin division, she's just gonna be able to win all types of these matchups. And you look at the girls that she's been matched up against, and they're all extremely winnable fights based on this significant jiu-jitsu advantage. JJ Aldrich, not really a grappler, good point style fighter, striker, and just. When she did get her to the ground, it was not a threat whatsoever. And then when she couldn't get her on the ground, she has no plan B, couldn't punch. Hannah Cifers, you know what? She gets Hannah Cifers to the ground. This is game over. What the hell is Hannah Cifers going to do to her? Hannah Cifers just bullied her. This 5'1", 115-pound Hannah Cifers wasn't having it and beat her. Veronica Macedo, okay, here's a girl that has fought at 135. But I mean, it's just small.
Incredible. He's probably
Small.
a 115er.
Is a Taekwondo black belt, not known for submission game whatsoever, and it's an armbar. Wouldn't you know it? Paul Shaughnessy, minute 9. At this point, you can easily write off her jiu-jitsu, non-existent. I mean, it's not like, dude, she's got really good jiu-jitsu. She's just not been able to get her opponent to the ground and get on top of them. No, she's gotten these girls to the ground and gotten on top of them. It's just she can't out-grapple them. So with Emily Whitmire, she has a significant grappling advantage, but does she? Emily Whitmire is another fighter that just puts herself in these bad positions.
In fairness to Whitmire, like her losses are to Jillian Robertson,
Top fighters.
Amanda Hebus, and I mean on the Ultimate Fighter, Roxy. So it's like she's fighting.
No doubt. And when she fights
And when
superior
she
grapplers,
fights Albu or Moyle, she like the bottom of the barrel. She's pulling up, but she's not fighting any middle ground. I mean,
you know what this
Viana
is?
is the bottom of the barrel as well.
you know what that is?
What is that?
That's scraping the bottom of the barrel, pal. And that's what she's been doing.
That's what
Alexander Albu, who's just, oh man, karate specialist and just very one-dimensional and very green. And then Jamie Moyle, who I don't mind Jamie Moyle. That was a good win for her. I just don't know that she beats Moyle. I'm thinking, this girl's not that bad, actually. And she's youngish. She trains at Extreme Couture. Her grappling's getting better. I don't mind Jamie Moyle. And that was a fight that Vinny Magalesh cornered Jamie Moyle, and she was a, fuck you, Vinny. So this girl could be okay. She beats Albu, who's awful, but she subs her in 101. It's like, this girl could be okay. And she gets smoked out by Rebus. But it turns out Rebus is okay. So yeah, I don't think Emily Whitmire is that bad. She seems that the jiu-jitsu of Viana would give her problems, but Viana's jiu-jitsu hasn't given anybody problems at this point. So I think Emily Whitmire hustles her up and ends up beating her. I want to say she beats her by decision, just because even though both of these girls are winning or losing by submission, I just feel like they're both grappling is probably comparable level, and then it just nullifies each other. Whitmire's got, I want to say, slightly better wrestling. She's not as strong as Viana, but I don't know that Viana's cardio is all that great. And as far as the striking goes, Viana she's very choppy. Whitmire's not no striking specialist herself, but not quite as choppy. Close fight, again. Lines maker figured it out. I don't want Viana as a dog. I would never bet Viana ever again over anybody. No. And as far as a dog or pass mid-level fight, it's not dog or pass. It's a 50-50 fight. I think Whitmire is the better 50-50 pick.
And finally, we got Sean Brady taking on Christian Aguilera. Sean Brady minus 400 favorite, Aguilera plus 325. I mean, our guy, Sean Brady, not exactly a finisher by any stretch of the imagination. Most of his fights go really deep, or he finds a late finish in some of his championship fights on regional promotions. Pretty solid all the way around. Good output. I've liked everything I've seen from him. The only thing I don't love is the minus 400, but we've kind of talked about this on the card. I mean, the person that I would be most surprised to see lose, and well, watch what ends up playing out, is Sean Brady. I think he's just on a different level than Christian Aguilera. Aguilera, it's bomb or bust. He's gonna have to get Brady, who has shown great durability over the course of his career. He's going to have to get him out of there early. Otherwise, Brady takes over. Pick is Brady. I'm sure I'll end up parlaying him with someone. Yeah, that's really all I've got to say.
I'll have Brady parlayed on everything. And one, because I really like him. And B, because he's the first fight on the card. So if for whatever reason he does fuck me
up.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just going to rebuild beyond that. And then Ankalaev becomes the new anchor with the Lamases and the Magnys of the world and the Alexa Grassos. But to start off, Sean Brady's the anchor. I like Sean Brady. I've always liked Sean Brady. I don't give a shit that he's going to a decision. He doesn't have to exert. No. He doesn't have to overextend. He doesn't have to get in some wild brawl. They haven't exactly given him the easiest fights, and he hasn't exactly looked spectacular. But winning fights is winning fights. And yeah, he's not looking spectacular, but he does what he needs to do in order to win. And again, I mean, Court McGee, you're making your UFC debut against a guy that's lived his entire life in the UFC. Like, the guy is just a very savvy veteran.
Death like multiple times.
Yeah, he kicks a fucking heroin addiction. He dies in a hospital, comes back, beats opiates, ends up in a basement apartment in New Mexico, searching through the carpet for crystal meth. Eventually wins the Ultimate Fighter. Talk about a fucking story. Court McGee's the man, and Brady he's also pretty much built to steal. Brady styles on this motherfucker early, and then, you can't put away Court. He works his way back in, but he gets the win. That's a good gut check performance. Again, this is a guy that's undefeated. I like when they lose, but that's a good fight. That's a good fight that you learn a lot from. Comes out of that against Ismail Nordiev. Nordiev's got skills, man. Not only is this guy a fantastic striker, but he was also like on the Danish wrestling team or something ridiculous. And you know what? It's going to take a decent guy to beat this kid. He's young. He's training at Hard Knocks 365 in Florida. Fuck, man. He's a decent prospect. Brady does what he's got to do, gets the win. I think he's a BJJ black belt now. His striking checks out. Defensively, he's savvy. The one knock on him is maybe he's not getting those finishes. Maybe he's not knocking out his opponent, but he's got a lot of pass here. Over Christian Aguilera is a bomber. And I honestly think Sean Brady's just a better striker. If Sean Brady wants to stand with this guy, he just out-punches him. He picks him apart. But Sean Brady could easily just take this guy to the ground. And I think that's the easiest key, is that Christian Aguilera loves to throw them headies. So, yeah, you could have struck this guy, but you're just playing with fire the whole time. Take this guy down, control him once he does get on the ground. I know what you're saying with Sean Brady. Jesus, last 2 fights by decision, and maybe he's more of a decision guy. One thing that's kind of got me on that is that Court McGee's just very hard to finish. And Nordiev, young, wily, hard to finish. Outside of that, he was finishing some guys in the regional scene. They're just lower level. When you look at Christian Aguilera, he's got these are his pro losses, right? Darren Smith Jr. knocks him out 308 round 1. Nick Piedman, it was a split. Piedman's a journeyman. Matt Sales, not really known for his power either, by the way, 151 of round 1. Richard Leroy, you've never heard of, knocked him out at 2 minutes of round 1. That's 3 times he's been knocked down in the first round. Matthew Frinku, he goes the decision with in LFA, and then he got punched out by David Michaud at 414 of round 1. His 5 pro losses, he's been knocked out in the first round 4 times, right? When you watch his knockouts, the tape of them, it's half shots, it's glancing shots, just he gets hit and he topples over. Him taking on Anthony Ivy, should have been Phil Ivey, would have put up a better fight. But the second he went to go hit Anthony Ivy was like, oh, fuck. And just tensed up. Got hit and just toppled over. It was like, oh, shit. Here's a guy that just wasn't ready to get hit. Meanwhile, John Brady ready to get hit. John Brady been hit. John Brady forged in fire, man. He's ready to go. He won't have those problems. And Aguilera, that's his path. So as much as I got Brady winning, and as much as I'd want to make 400 a better price by chasing a prop, I don't know if I feel super comfortable with by decision. I think Brady outstrikes him, takes him down, beats him up on the ground. The longer this fight goes, he chips away at Aguilera, and eventually, I hope, takes him out and finishes him inside the distance. But if you're parlaying him and he's your anchor on your parlay, you leave the 400. You don't put a parlay, or you don't put a prop on a lengthy parlay, because that's just asking for trouble. I've had awesome props that just fucked up, and I wish I had the fight straight up. 400, not a great price tag, but if you are parlaying him, just keep it straight.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And when I looked at the props on that, over 2.5 rounds, minus 145. Fight goes to decision, minus 125.
So they think it's going to decision.
It's 50-50.
It's about 50. Yeah, you're right.
Slightly, basically 50-50 that they're offering. And that seems about right. I mean, there's no real edge there that I see. Why don't we jump into DraftKings? We'll start at the top of the board, or Pat may be able to ask us some questions.
Yeah, I got some DraftKings questions. So one of the things that I like to do, whether it's betting or DraftKings with you guys, and this is what I actually did last week, because a lot of my picks on my parlay did not jive with what you guys were saying whatsoever. I mean, it jived with what you were saying, but not necessarily who you picked. I listened, and it sounded like you were big upping one side of the fight, then just picked on the other side. I was like, no, I'm going to go with what they actually said on this one. So the way that I have it kind of breaking down here between the two of you, Brady, Ankalaev, Lamas, Grasso. If you're going to go with the favorites, those are the 4 favorites you feel the best about. We're Rakic, Magny, Martin, they're vulnerable. They're your pie shitter type people. If you put those 4 people on a parlay together, it's 2-1. Which isn't terrible. But DraftKings wise, if you go to the top, it sounds like Beefo Brady is where you want to go, right? At 9,300?
Not exactly a finisher is the problem.
But you're looking for
right
people who don't lose, too.
No,
you have
I
Ankalaev, you have
agree.
Brady, and then you can go with your boy D. Chirivo down at 78. Whoever Bruce Leroy ends up fighting, he's probably going to be the favorite. He's 7,400. You take him.
Yeah, until we know who Bruce Leroy is fighting. There's a big gap.
Straight up, there's a good chance that fucking Bill Algeo falls off and Bruce Leroy ends up getting mopped up by Lamas. But we'll let the week play out. Back to Brady. Not only do we think he's the safest guy on, he is the most expensive play, but through 2 fights in the UFC against McGee, he scores 109 points.
Yeah.
On the strength of 119 significant strikes, a knockdown, and 2 takedowns. Against Nordiev, only 47 significant strikes, 4 takedowns, and ends up netting 91.5
So he can mix
points.
it up.
He can strike, he can wrestle. Those guys were both durable. Christian Aguilera doesn't have the same durability, and yet he's got multiple paths to scoring points. So Brady does feel like he would be a good play. He is a safe play, and obviously he is the biggest favorite. Moving on from that, you got Lamas. Lamas at 9,200, yeah, he seems like he should be safe. He is also a pretty good finisher. Maybe he puts it on Bill Algeo. I got a deep down gut feeling about that one that I don't love. Grasso, as Paul alluded to, 115-pound girls don't really have the stinging power. She also doesn't really figure to use her wrestling very much. So even if she just goes out and scores 100 significant strikes straight up, it ain't worth it. It really isn't. She traditionally has a 52 points scored per fight, but that's with losses and mixed everything in it. So, she's been a traditionally lower score, not great. Ankalaev at 9,000. Come on. This
Yeah,
fight's
that's a
probably
fire.
not
That's a
getting.
fire fight.
And if you're looking for a punt, as Paul mentioned, maybe Cutelaba is the guy for the punt, because if he's going to win,
It's gonna be
gonna get it done
fast,
really
and
quick.
he's going to score like 100 points.
Mallory Martin, I hope she has high ownership because I don't get this value. $8,900. That's a real just knock on Cifers won't be able to grab. She'll get taken down, submitted. But she's been fighting such a higher level than Martin that I think she might be okay. Giga's listed. He's not
hold
there
on.
anymore.
If Cifers wins, how does she win?
Decision.
Does she score DraftKings points?
No.
No.
Because in both of her UFC
I'd
wins.
see her winning. I'd see her scoring like 60, 65.
Yeah. Well, if you just look at her UFC wins, so the 2 fights she's won in the UFC, she's put up 73 and 70 points respectively. And it's mostly just one of those fights she had a knockdown, one of those fights she had a takedown.
Knockdown.
Yeah, I know.
Don't bank on those 10 points happening in every fight.
Just so y'all know, the knockdown was over Polyana Viana. So this is what you're dealing with, folks.
What about Pitolo? You liked him. He's 77.
Yeah, Pitolo's the kind of guy that's got the upside that he's going to throw. And listen, with Impa's undefeated, and Impa's got a chin. But do we know he has a chin? Do we know he can get hit to the body?
Yet.
Because even if he's got a chin, man, once those body shots start ripping him, who knows? There's a lot of unknowns about him that Pitolo could theoretically be very high upside. So I think that Pitolo is, if you're trying to save money on the card, obviously, Pitolo's, he's got some good looks to him. He's kind of the only dog that I've been backing publicly. Yeah, he really is the only underdog that I've been backing on this card, and it's a slight underdog. But the $7,700 on DraftKings definitely makes it a little bit worth it. Robbie, as Paul mentioned, $7,600. I mean, he could take out Magny. Magny has been knocked out. A Robbie Lawler style of opponent has had success against Magny. I just don't know if that Robbie's the guy, especially at 38. Anthony Smith, fuck, if this was 5 rounds, oh baby, 75.
I'd be all over
really
5
good.
rounds, but 3
But it's
rounds, I
not.
think he's gonna lose.
Looking at that bottom end, if you're trying to get somebody on the bottom end, I think, if let's say you're looking for sub $7,500, then you wait for Anthony Smith. Have a look at it. He is $7,500. That is good pricing. Bruce Leroy, once he gets a new opponent, he's probably going to be sitting at 74 still. Hannah Cifers, as you mentioned, Paul, Pat at 73. Even if she's not going to be a big finisher, she just gets the win and gets 65 points, man. At least you're not getting a loss, and you were able to save a lot of money. And Cutelaba would be a big punt. Kim, if she wins, it won't score enough. Algeo could be another punt, and Christian Aguilera would be a punt. But Brady's got a chin on him, so I don't think Aguilera is the option. With Algeo, what's his path? Knockout? Lamas? Only the finest guys have done that. Submit Lamas? Only the finest guys have done that. It'd be a rough night, but at 7,000, he would be considered a punt. And I do like him better. He's got more upside than a Kim or, that's pretty much at the bottom.
I'm already looking forward to next week's card.
Like next week, well.
Man, there are some Bartos. Bartos is on the card. You know that he's good for about 6 takedowns.
Oh, yeah.
Julia Avila's they're giving Nico Montano the Julia Avila treatment. It's like, yeah. I mean, they're probably looking for ways to get rid of Nico Montano. Didn't know. Wait a second. OSP didn't he have COVID like a week ago?
Well, you get over it pretty quick. That's what I'm told.
It's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but that's what I'm told.
So stand by. Oh my God. Michelle Pereira is fighting next week. Next week's card looks pretty fun, but we're in America still. So
Yeah. So this card,
none of the fights most of the fights may not happen.
But just
'cause
like
that's kind of how
every
it happens
week.
every single week now.
Just like every week, you could get Ankalaev, Brady, Neil Magny, like all these guys. Pitolo, shit, he could score some big. Emily Whitmire, she's on the better of the cheap end, and then you have to take somebody you don't fucking want. So maybe you drop Whitmire to take
Unless
two people
Bruce
you
Leroy
don't
gets a
really
new opponent, and that opens up a
For
lot
what
of
I just-
salary
yeah,
safety.
yeah.
But then he's also going to be owned.
Well, then you drop Whitmire.
I mean, just from pure DraftKings, like just thinking about it and like game theory.
Oh, you could have
wise,
Chirivo
that if
then.
it depends on who Bruce Leroy gets. If he gets some guy who sucks, then you automatically just kind of put him in.
Yeah.
Or you just go to the other side and that's your move. But let's say you play 5 lineups, you play 4 with Bruce Leroy. What you then need to do is try to figure out who people are going to own at the top. And then if everyone's kind of equal in terms of what you think the win percentage is, fade all the high ownership people, use the low ownership people at the high prices, and that way it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Yeah, well, see, the one thing there is that the assumption is whoever Bruce Leroy gets, you put him on, and he is so cheap, and you put him on, but Bruce Leroy's not that good. And what happens is that because he just beat Chase Hooper, well, as it turns out, not that good, people are going to overvalue him. Doesn't matter who he got. Well, the guy's on short notice and he just beat Hooper. His career has been riddled with...
And he's never been a guy that you really wanted to play on DraftKings.
A split decision over Martin Bravo. A split decision loss to Guan Wang. A relatively close fight against Rolando D. He went to decision with Masio Fullen. Like, he hasn't looked very good against really low-level competition in the UFC.
He's shitting some pies before.
He's shitting a lot of pies. And just because he's automatically 7-0... honestly, Kevin Kroom would have been a live underdog. And we're not going to get Kevin Kroom now. And we might get someone shittier than Kevin Kroom. You might get someone better than Kevin Kroom. And I think it's an automatic bet. Oh, there's only a few days into the card. I'll just put Bruce Leroy in my lineups. I'm just going to lock in Bruce Leroy. Guy has shit and a few pies in his day. Just say it. Just say it.
All right, I think we're almost done here. Just hit him with the PRP before we get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's
hold
favorite
on.
heavy.
Before we get to it, Cody, as you were saying, that maybe you don't want to always just tweet out what the PRP is. Maybe if there's a change to it or something like that, you tweet that out. Why don't we say if we don't get up to 7K subs by the time Saturday rolls around, you won't tweet it out?
Yeah, no, exactly. If we're not getting no subs on Pat Mayo's channel, then yeah, I listen, I'm indifferent to tweeting them out because at first it was just like, oh, sure, I'll throw these out. People seem to enjoy them. But also, now you get a lot of people don't watch the show. They just wait for the parlay. And you get a lot of people, they don't know what the PRP is. By the way, if you're still wondering, it's the Pogie Raw parlay. I thought we had been over this enough times. But yeah, like I don't care. I'd rather you watch the show, listen to it, have some fun. You go in with a sense of, remember how we always used to talk about this forever. The reason that our show is a little bit different than the other shows is we tell you our opinion and we leave the choice up to you. You can take the knowledge. Geez, it sounded like they like Lamas, but they're kind of uncertain. They like Grasso. They might like, oh, and it looks like they really like Sean Brady. You take what, and you kind of mix it in with your own thoughts and your own beliefs and some of the only things you gather. When you tweet out a parlay and it's written and it's right there, there's no thought process. They'll just fucking bet that. And people have been winning money. People have been winning money. And people are happy about it. But I'd rather you just watch the show. I'm not opposed to tweeting something out. But I'd rather just tell you right now, because this is what's going to end up being. Sean Brady's my anchor. Ankalaev's anchor number 2. Them together is not plus money, and I want some plus money. So I would tweet out, you know what, put Ankalaev and Sean Brady and put them with, I like Neil Magny. Then you can't tweet this out, but this is what I would do. I keep Sean Brady. I keep Ankalaev. I'd take out Magny, and I'd put one with Lamas. Take out Lamas, put one with Grasso. Take out Grasso, put on with one in Rakic. If any one of those, Rakic or Magny or Grasso lose, that's fine. The other ones will be fine. Sean Brady's not losing. Ankalaev's not losing. Those become those 2 anchors. As far as the whole fight parlay goes, this is the PRP. It's going to be Rakic. It's going to be Neil Magny. It's going to be Alexa Grasso. It's going to be Ricardo Lamas, Ankalaev, Maki Pitolo. What I end up doing is on the PRP, and it's the last one at the bottom, it's going to say Hannah Cifers. And I'll take G. Chirico, and I'm going to take, so far, yeah, I don't know who Alex Caceres is fighting, but that's going to be lower end on the parlay. Emily Whitmire, and she'll be lower end in the parlay, and Sean Brady's going to be on that higher end portion. So you don't, that's what it's going to be. I don't see anything changing. The only thing that's going to change is Bruce Leroy is going to get a new opponent. I'm going to retape study all of Lamas and Bill Algeo, because why is it 260? This still doesn't make any sense to me. And yeah, that's all I really care about. I'm gonna watch some Cummings and G. Chirico again, and Cifers, Mallory Martin. I don't know, you know me. I'm watching a lot of these, but the picks I don't think are gonna change. They got it right. The favorites are the favorites on this card, outside of Pitolo, whatever, slight underdog. It's just a matter of which one of these favorites is gonna share your pie. So try to keep the pie short. Try to spread the wealth a little bit. Try to hit some props if you want to. But yeah, I think this is a money-making card. Last week it was so bad I just walked away completely. The week before that, it seemed like a money-making card, but it was also like, it was my fault for putting JDS and Sean O'Malley
as we've gone through
Picks
it, man, like I don't trust a lot of people on this card. I am not excited about betting this card this week. I walked into it with a few ideas. They've been shot down. Like, I don't know where I'm going anymore.
I'm thinking 3, 5, and 7 parlays are hitting. Okay. Beyond that, we'll have
the complete PRP as it stands right now. I mean, if you take Cifers off of it, it's 37-1. You throw Cifers onto it, 130-1.
Yeah. Now, let's say Cifers isn't on it. That fight's just not on it. And you likewise don't take the Emily Whitmire, Polyana Viana fight. Just take Whitmire off that as well.
You take Whitmire off?
Yeah. What does that pay?
Just Whitmire?
No. So the PRP minus 2 of the 3 girl fights. So no Whitmire and no Hannah Cifers.
That pays 20 to 1.
20 to 1. And just so that you're really covering all your bases, you take Alexa Grasso out. Just bet the 8 men's fight.
That's 15 to 1.
That's 15 to 1. And there's less of a chance of an arm bar from guard being what screws you on this fine Saturday.
Ain't that the truth? Anyway, that's it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to Cody Saftic for breaking down the fights with me. As always, thank you to Pat. Remember, you're here watching it. Or if you're not watching it, go subscribe to the Mayo Media Network. Yeah, that wraps it up. So for Pat and Cody, I'm Paul saying goodbye and good luck.
That Mayo experience! Experience!